Hey, Laura. Okay, you're live.
All right. So, I'd like to call to order the South Burlington School Board special meeting on August 7th, 2025. The first item on the agenda is a projected executive session, and so I would entertain a motion to find that premature public knowledge of what we're gonna discuss, which is employment of a public officer and receiving confidential attorney-client communication for the purpose of providing legal services to the board would place the district at significant disadvantage.
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 The motion passes. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session for discussion of employment of a public officer and to receive confidential attorney-client communication for the purpose of providing legal services to the board.
I move.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we'll go into executive session and we will try to return around 6 p.m. And coming into executive session with us is Joe McNeil, the district council. And at some point, we may ask Kristen Romick to come into the executive session. So,
You can tell her.
You're live, David.
okay. All right, I'll call to order the August 7, 2025 special meeting of the South Burlington School Board. Our first agenda item was an executive session. Our second item is calling the meeting to order. Our third item is announcements and amendments to the agenda. Does anybody have any announcements or amendments to the agenda? I have one. No. So I'd like to welcome Kristen Romick sitting here as our acting superintendent. Kristen was our choice because she brings a wealth of experience, relationships, and a history of dedication to the district, and we are thankful for you in this role, and we have confidence that you will tide us over while we need that. So thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Thank you very much. I'm excited for the opportunity and forward to bridging that gap that we have over the next few weeks. So thank you. It's very comprehensive.
Big force, big ask, so thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other announcements or amendments to the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to comments from the public.
This is Ellen, correct? Hi, Elizabeth Fitzgerald, resident city councilor. I just wanted to make the board aware that the city is going to have a public hearing on September 2nd, I believe. I have to check the date, 2nd of the 4th. And there are some considerations in a public forum on land development regulations. So the TIF district, which includes city center, some property across Williston Road, and then down to San Remo Drive. There are some modifications being recommended by the Planning Commission that would allow for 12 to 14 story buildings in that area. And I know I brought up some questions about considerations of property that abuts the school properties. This is a long-term plan. It's really land development regulations that encourage denser housing in what we call our city center area. But I did want to make the board aware that the public hearing will be in that early September timeframe. if there are any considerations you would like to take into account relative to that height building in proximity to school facilities. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. We'll go back. Oh, there's a hand up in the attendees. Mark, would you unmute, Mark?
I have. All right. Thank you all. And Ms. Ronick, best wishes. I'm an outsider. I'm Mark Greenstein, but potentially an insider should Ms. Ronick you not want to continue. I am a candidate for interim superintendent. I'm in Connecticut now. But for all purposes, I wanted to just for 2 minutes have the board members be really thinking about a proposal that I think it's long overdue. And it's to stop foisting advanced math on kids. The students who need in their careers algebra, trigonometry, matrices, calculus, for God's sakes, it's 1 in 200. And that number is shrinking. And meanwhile, we put on students from 6th grade onward, and they've got their arithmetic typically down by then. That's all you need to conduct life and business. And then we're putting them through grade 7 all the way to 12 in most cases with math that will never be used in place of things like critical thinking, nature, health science, computing, workplace skills. There's so much that they could do and flourish. I'm a SAT prep teacher. I've been at this for 25 years. And you do not need an SAT math score to attend a really good college. The students who are, you see them, especially girls, feeling inferior because they don't keep up and frustrated. Why do I have to do this? And in the meantime, they're spending half of their homework time on one subject and they could be spreading it out to 3 or 4. I hope you'll consider it long run about what are we really doing with these math requirements. Thanks for hearing me out. Look forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Bridget, would you unmute Bridget?
Hi there. This is the second meeting in a row that Mr. Greenstein has been allowed to comment. He doesn't fall under, I know that the board can listen to anyone. I find his comments extremely disturbing, and they are from someone who is outside of our district. Even if he is considered, which I hope he is not, for a position in our district, he should be following the regular process that everyone else would need to be following. I am very frustrated that the board seems to shut down commentary a lot of the time from people who live in the district and who have an interest in the district other than selling services to the district or potentially being hired by the district. And yet he has been allowed to speak at both of these meetings. And I really hope that you're a little more judicious in the future about outside service providers being allowed to take up time at board meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, Bridget. Any other public comment? So we only allow one session per speaker because public comment is not meant to be a period for discussion. So I'm sorry, Mark, but I can't let you respond right now. Any other comments? Okay. We have a comment in the room.
One Coleman from South Burlington, Vermont. I was disappointed when I saw you had hired a public relations firm. To me, I'm gonna wonder from now on, is it the board speaking or is it a PR firm? I would rather it was the board, but I would think I'll never know. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell. Diane, would you, Diane? You can go ahead, Diane.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say I'm concerned about the prospective interim candidates speaking at this meeting, but I feel compelled to just say I was offended by the assumptions made about girls and math, and lots of girls excel at math and want to be in advanced math courses. And it to me just seemed misogynistic to make this assumption that we shouldn't be, that he's singling out girls in particular about math and advanced math. And I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Any other public comment? All right, the next item on the agenda is action on the public participation policy. And I think this is something that we've been discussing since May. The spirit behind it is to take the public more seriously and offer them opportunities to engage with a quorum of the board and to clarify the guidelines that have been on our agenda and back them up with a policy that the board has adopted and allow us to clarify venues for public participation, both on the agenda template and also on the website, where you may remember that in the policy, it mentions that we can add a table of I think we called it the table of authorities to the website that'll basically say, if you have a question about staffing, here's who you talk to. If you have a question about budgeting, here's who you talk to. If you have a question about anything, you know, like let's make this a big table so that when people want to when they want to provide appropriate feedback, they know where to go to so that it doesn't feel like rope-a-dope, where they talk to one person, they don't get a response, they talk to the other one, they say talk to the first person and all that. So that's my introduction to this. I'll put it back on the screen and then I would welcome comments from board members and our superintendent. And I think if we discover that we are not satisfied with this as currently written, then we will not take action on it tonight. But if we are satisfied with how it's written, then we've had at least 3 readings. And so we are allowed to take action on it. Are there any concerns from board members or superintendent about this policy?
Well, the one thing that I was going to say is, and I think we discussed this perhaps last week, is in regards to who may address the board. And I think what we have heard is that anyone can address the board essentially, and it's spelled out here in pretty great detail. Some of the concerns in the past is that we have had participants address the board that are not residents of South Burlington. And I don't feel that their commentary adds to our discussion, but nonetheless, I mean, just to kind of clarify that they still have the right to speak. And I think going forward, an opportunity for us is to have a sign-in sheet potentially. And if you have a certain amount of time that's allotted on the schedule, then you can divide it up based on the people who are going to speak. And so that way, folks can be afforded the appropriate opportunity to have time to talk, right?
And we do have an allowance for that, we
Right.
say sign-ups may be available.
Oh, right.
And Laura, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I just, people who may address the board, so I agree with what we have written here. Any district residents, all the stakeholders. And number 6 is others at the discretion of the board. And I know I'm in a minority here, but I do think that people who are not stakeholders, they are not community members, they have to give their name, and we as a board decide whether or not that's others at the discretion of the board. And I think that we can exercise that. So that's, otherwise, I do agree. I agree with the policy.
So let me just,
I think that my only other concern is have folks, divided up and who's going to be able to speak, by the numbers, and that is a little bit concerning as well.
yeah. My short knowledge of I have not seen a situation yet where we've had so many speakers that we have needed to cut people off. Maybe I just have been around.
I've happened, that's happened.
But. And the only other thing I know this is clear to everybody here. Number 3, where it says, and parents, it's parents of students, right?
Yes,
Because. Just from a legal standpoint, somebody could come in from Heinsberg, the parent of a student.
right. I think the only reason that we enumerated this was so that we could justify why we might prioritize.
Well, I get it.
So,
Does it have to be parents or can it be caregivers? And I guess would be one thing too, because it may not necessarily be a parent, but it could be.
yeah, I think that's not a substantial change. I don't think that requires.
Caregivers of students.
I think it says school. Yeah, we would say students in there.
Yeah.
Their caregivers. So do I need Knox for a comment here? Student, yes, I think I did.
Caregivers and the school staff members.
Yeah, it's confusing, we're making, geez, guys. Students and students, caregivers. And then I also wanted to point out another thing here is that this policy is written so that there are only a few requirements. I think we use the word will, so there's only 4 times where we use the word will. Every other time it's may. So there will be time set aside for public input on any topic at every regular, special, or emergency meeting of the board. This is the public comment section. Board interaction with the public. This is meant to say that the board will not interact with the public, like have a discussion, except during specially notated public forums. Also, it says we will not discuss things that are not on the agenda, even if it is a public forum. And then this is just in statute that we have to provide a response if people have questions. So those are the only 4 things that are required by this policy. Everything else is up to our implementation. So I'd entertain a motion to adopt this policy.
I have one other
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
You just said about an agenda. Will there be agendas for the public forums? So if the, member of the community shows up and wants to talk about something that's not, like, how does that work with us being able to speak with them if it's not
So-
on the agenda? Yeah.
So a public forum is still a regular, special, or emergency meeting. It's one of those 3, depending on how it's worn. And so therefore, at the beginning of a public forum, there is still a public comment section. And during the public comment section, you can talk about Mars. You can talk about anything.
For 3 minutes.
For 3 minutes. So that's, in a public forum, the concept. So in the past, we're responding to criticism that listening sessions were not well attended. One theory is that they were not taken seriously because the board was not there in quorum. And so it was kind of like, well, I'm only talking to a couple people. And they can't really say anything to me, so why should I even bother? And so the purpose of a public forum is for it to be so for it to be a public meeting with a quorum of the board with warned agenda topics. And then if somebody wants to talk about something, then the procedure for that is that they should email the board saying, I would love to talk about this, and we may decide to put that on the agenda.
So for clarity, for instance, if someone wanted to address this topic, are we affording people the opportunity to talk after, so that there's an opportunity for public to have input?
Yes, so the chair may ask for comments on action items before action is taken by the board. And this is a clarification of something we say here. So the guidelines for public comment that are currently listed on our agenda say, it's confusing. Comments should not be related to agenda items, but can be made during the discussion of an agenda item. So I think that is meant to say, we actually could, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry, I apologize for being wrong about misinterpreting this. But apparently, if it's a discussion of an agenda item, we can take public comments, but then at the same time, it says public comment is not a time for discussion. And so that leads you to believe that actually you can't have a back and forth. You can't actually respond to what somebody said. So we're aiming to replace these with something that's more, but you're right. I guess we have the same problem here. If we ask for comments on action items, would we expect to interact with them? Technically, no. According to this, we would not interact, but we would accept comments.
Well, I thought that when we put it together, the intent was that you're gonna have your board meetings where there's public comment. And you would have an opportunity to the public to speak again during an action item, but when you have the public forum. I didn't think that we were planning to actually have an agenda, and it was more of an opportunity to dialogue and to
You
discuss.
have to have an agenda. We have, if we're gonna talk about board discussion,
Okay,
we have to, but I think that's fine. You know, we say we're gonna talk about parent accountability.
Yeah.
And then,
leave it broad.
so in response to your question, this policy says a normal meeting, which is not a public forum, during which we would not respond to the public is allowed to comment on action items. So right now, somebody could comment on an action item, but we would not respond to it.
Right, I think it's just affording people that opportunity so that when you make a decision, you made a decision with their
Input.
thoughts, their input.
Right, and presumably for many, so. Obviously, the board is gonna take action on many things. And in general, we're not gonna have time to have a public forum with a warned agenda item on that particular topic. For every single thing that we talk about, like selection of library materials. So normally, I think the expectation would be that people talk during public comment. While we're on a first reading, second reading, and stuff like that. And then there would be some things that are of particular public concern that would get a full public forum agenda item on them. So yes, I think there's multiple opportunities here for somebody to provide feedback on something we're gonna take action on, hopefully far before we take action on.
Well, and we could be affected by what they say during the action time.
And not take action.
And not decide not to take actions. We want to think about it more.
Or it changes your opinion then.
Right.
Okay. Their input, sway issue, or
So I would entertain a motion to adopt this policy as written.
I move to adopt the policy as written.
Do I have a second?
second. She looks like.
Well, now it's time for discussion.
We're gonna have discussion.
So, any
Discussion.
Second.
Thank you.
I will just say, I think that the whole point of having a sign-up sheet is critical, because when you go and you look at, if you scroll up just a little bit above, where it says, the board may prioritize speakers in the following order. In order to prioritize the speakers, you have to know who the speakers would be. So I think that kind of underscores the importance of having that sign-up sheet, right?
Yes, and I think that the way it's written now. if we know at a board meeting where we're gonna talk about the budget and we expect a ton, we are allowed to, we may have a sign up sheet. But then in a meeting like, you know, the consent agenda meeting in the middle of July, we might decide not to have a sheet and we wouldn't be out of compliance with our policy.
But I would just say, I mean, to some of the comments that were made tonight during the public comment, people who are concerned that you have folks that are not in the district that are commenting, and they're having an opportunity to comment before people who are in the district. You know, I'm just saying that might help to abate some of those concerns if you're looking at it and saying, hey, these are the people that we know are South Burlington residents, we want to hear from them first. Before you get to
So are you
residents.
saying that the motion should fail and we should change this from saying sign up sheets may be available to sign up sheets will be available and force us to do it every time?
Well, my concern with that is though, that does not mean that you can't speak if you didn't sign up on
That's
that
also
sign.
I agree,
Right.
yeah,
Right,
that's
okay,
the
so
thing.
you can still speak even if you didn't sign up on the sign up sheet.
Right.
Even
My-
if it's here every time.
Right.
My reason for not having us forced is that I don't wanna be out of compliance if we think that on a particular meeting, we don't need it.
Okay,
Laura
this
has
is a good discussion.
Yeah,
Laura has her hand up.
If someone,
one second, Laura.
Alright.
But
if someone out of the district signs up on the sign-up sheet, even if they're non-resident, would they have priority before someone who is from the district but didn't sign up?
so this policy. Does not say that the prioritization has to be based on the sign up sheet. It just says that I can prioritize if I know.
Alright,
So that is probably like an edge case that would. Laura,
Yeah, I just want to say again that everybody who speaks has to say their name and where they live. And again, I want to reiterate that we do as a board have discretion to say whether or not the person speaks. Community members, stakeholders, yes, 100%. Anybody who has, but again, people should, I think it's just pretty clear. We as the board have discretion, and that is how other boards operate. I did look into this a little bit. So. anyway.
well. I am not a lawyer, but I believe that where it says at the discretion of the board, that has to do with prioritization. So like, we could not say. The advice from Joe was that. If somebody wants to speak, we have to let them speak.
Okay.
And so they
don't
might go
think-
last in line, but
I don't think that's entirely correct, but okay, I will go along with it.
even if, I don't know how this would materially change if we, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know how this would materially change if Joe said, well, actually, you can. I think that it's sufficient as written that we may prioritize people. And then I guess the assumption is that we would also be able to move on to a different agenda item and therefore cut off public comment simply by prioritizing and moving to a new thing. But I wouldn't do that unless Joe told me that that was allowed.
The word discretion makes it seem like we choose to move on if we want to.
I don't interpret that here, because all that list is doing is it says the board chair may prioritize speaker in the following order. So that doesn't say who can talk, it just says the order by which I can prioritize people. But I think that it does leave. It is ambiguous here whether we are essentially allowed to time people out. But I also don't think that it's necessary for us to put that in here. Like Joe will be like, you can time people out, we'll time people out, or Joe will say, no, you can't time people out, and then we won't. Any more discussion on this? All right,
Would we
go ahead.
have discussion? Ask if there's discussion on the action item, way that our current policy is written.
So guidelines for public comment. Comments should not be related to agenda items, but can be made during the discussion of an agenda item. So let's be liberal about our interpretation of that and say, yes, at this point, we would, if anybody wants to say anything before we take action on this, they would be welcome to say something. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth Fitzgerald. I did send a note to the full board, earlier, so I'm just gonna share the highlights of my comments. But one thing that I think needed clarification was, that was it intended that, no public comment would be sought on any other discussion topics, or the public should make comments in advance of board discussion on these topics. Like there's 3 other topics on the agenda tonight. So will there be any comments taken from the public on those during a discussion period, or only this topic, which is warned for action? That to me needed clarification. The latter concerns me, as the public comment would be out of context and potentially unnecessary if the board touches on a point the public was interested in. So if I might want to make a comment, but if I hear you just discuss it in your discussion, I'm like, okay, that's covered. I don't need to speak on that, but I would have made it out of context in a public session in advance of that. I did think, I do believe the public can enhance the board discussion by having heard the board's exchanges in advance of taking that comment. And you might find over time that public comment does not take that much time out of your agenda and might add some value to your deliberations, when the perception of suppressing public comment in any way could result in unnecessary blowback too. There are current guidelines on the board's agenda for public comment, so I wondered if those had to be modified. Like in number 1, it states your legal name and town of residence. So if you're gonna, if the board chair has the authority to prioritize, you would need that information at some point. And it's either getting it up front, or it's stopping a meeting and asking for that, and then sort of calling people out. And if you're gonna take comment from anybody anyway, I just wonder what purpose that serves. The second item is in number 2 on the current. It's the same thing I asked about. The chair may ask for comments on action items only. So what is the criteria for when and how a public forum might be designated? And will public input be allowed on discussion topics on the agenda? And then lastly, on number 7, public comment is not a time for discussion. And this is relative to, can a resident or anyone ask that their written comments be read and or included in the public record versus subjectively included, and that is noted as when appropriate in the current policy recommendations. So if I had sent these comments in and asked them to be read and included in the public record, I don't know what the board's mechanism is in this policy to address that. Thanks.
So I think that can further inform the discussion of the motion that's currently on the table. My understanding of the board's position on this is that it was felt comment being allowed on every discussion item as opposed to every action item would be too disruptive of the normal business meetings. And at the same time, by establishing public forums, we would kind of go 1 step backwards, 2 steps forward. And provide like a very extensive and new opportunity for the public to like go back and forth with people. So I think that the way that it's written, it does indeed restrict comment to action items and not discussion items. So is everybody still comfortable with that? Based on the public comment?
Yes, my question is, and that's great, Elizabeth, for bringing up like what we would do with these guidelines that are listed right here, because that second one just drives me crazy every time. I don't quite, it's been confusing to everyone. In this situation, would a community member be able to talk about an agenda item that is a discussion item during public comment that they cannot comment on during the discussion item portion? That makes sense.
So. Thank you for bringing up, and Elizabeth also, I believe that this agenda is going to be rewritten.
Mhm.
And based on the policy, we will write different procedures.
Mhm.
So this, all these 1 through 7, they're gonna get deleted and we are gonna start over.
Exactly. So as long as, I mean, I guess I wanna make sure that if public comment cannot happen during a discussion item, it's not prohibited from happening during public comment at the beginning
Correct.
of a meeting.
Yes.
Like the way this states, you can't talk about an agenda item.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you look at board,
This just says agenda. item.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were looking at
Yeah,
the,
if you look at the original model policy from the VSBA. They say. There will be time set aside for public input on items not on the agenda. But we removed that and we said. You can talk about stuff that's on the agenda during public comment, and so the ideal model for public comment is, we warn something for discussion. People comment on it in public comment, we warn it again, people comment on it during public comment, if it's an issue of particular concern, we schedule a public forum. We put it on the agenda, people show up and they get to have a back and forth with the board, and then this thing where the board chair may ask for comments on action items before action is taken, that's meant to be like a last ditch. You guys are idiots, stop what you're doing.
us, we're the idiots.
Yes, we're the idiots.
But it is confusing because like right now, number 2, guidelines for public comment, it says comment should not be related to an agenda
But we're
item.
deleting them.
Okay, yeah, but
They're
can be
getting
made,
deleted.
and I think that's where so much of the confusion.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's just having a procedure
Right.
without having a backup
Right.
policy. We should always have had a policy.
Yeah.
So now we're having a policy and then we'll establish procedures that
Exactly.
comply with it.
But I think going back to also what Elizabeth brought up regarding any email communication. How is that sufficiently addressed in, or someone was asked if they send something in and they asked to have their public comment incorporated into the record, how do we have that? Do you
I
have
think
those
we have the
sufficient?
discretion about whether it would be included in the
Okay.
public record.
Oh.
So to be clear, the public records are defined as anything that we write or acquire in the course of doing business. So if somebody sends us a note,
Yes,
it is a public
in the
record,
public
even
record.
if they later tell us, oh, no, I didn't want that to be in the public record.
right,
So like, this is more like, maybe the public record may be included in. I guess if they sent us like an HR thing. If they sent us an HR thing, then it wouldn't be appropriate, it wouldn't be in the public record. I guess what the intention of this was more like on our website.
well, I mean, I would just think if somebody sent in communication related to an item that was being discussed. And they're not here in person. Then, would that be something that could be read and acknowledged? That's the,
maybe.
as part of the discussion, not just necessarily in the public record. Because when I hear that, and what Elizabeth had just stated, I would see that more as we would like to acknowledge communication that was just received by the public from someone who could not speak tonight. And perhaps there is some good information there that needs to be shared.
So I
That's,
guess,
the point.
for example, when Elizabeth sent in her comments a few days ago. That would trigger this, wouldn't. Unable or unwilling, I think maybe we just simplify this and to say. Individuals may submit. Just delete this, individuals may submit written comments to the board.
Right,
And written comments may be acknowledged, and you could interpret that to mean, we may acknowledge them by reading them at the meeting. And we may acknowledge them by, like, for example, making a PDF out of your email and dropping it into the folder.
yeah, and well, yeah, okay, written comments received may be acknowledged and when appropriate included in
Published record.
the published. Record, because it's art, like you just said, it is gonna be in the public record, but in the published record. Or published meeting,
Maybe included alongside other meeting materials.
yes,
So by the way,
Yeah.
the motion has failed because we have now changed
Yeah.
it. I have to start over.
I think this is some good improvement.
And I guess when I think of that too, I think of it being in the minutes too. If it's read
Yes.
out loud, then it will be in the minutes of whoever's taking the minutes of the meeting. You understand?
Well, but if you had a discussion about this as we were having, and one of the things, like, I could just bring it up during that discussion. We received an email from a constituent, I'd like to read it out loud.
Into the minutes.
Yeah, so that, I guess that's when I hear being part of the public record, I think of it as being part of like the minutes, like the person was here and someone,
Right.
you know, just notes of what they said.
So for clarity, when you say you may read it, are you then making decisions about what you're reading, what you're not reading?
According to this is written, it says may be acknowledged and may be included alongside other minutes. So we may ignore people and we may not read them out loud.
Yeah.
And I think we could set procedures, and then if that becomes a problem, we could then revise this, but I don't wanna tie our hands about having to read out loud every single.
There has to be some discretion as to where it's read.
Laura, please. Sorry, Laura, interrupt me if I don't.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just gonna call for the orders of the day because we're way over time on this agenda item. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion to adopt the policy as written here.
We've got, or,
Yeah, I already
before.
moved to do that.
so, and
Oh, Bridget, yes. Go ahead. Do you
Thank you.
recognize Bridget?
Yeah, thank you so much for recognizing me a second time in the meeting. I appreciate it. One quick question I had is that the chair may ask for comments on action items before action is taken by the board. I just wanted to clarify, when you guys are changing policy and you're doing first and second reading, are you counting first and second reading as action items on the agenda? I just want to make sure that the public doesn't end up in a situation where they don't feel like they can comment on first and second reading because it's not technically an action item for the night. But then you get to the night where you're taking action on something and then they're kind of told, well, we're taking action. We've talked about this 2 or 3 times already, and it's time for us to move this forward. I just want to make sure that it's clear that people can comment on first or second reading as the policy is, or the procedure or whatever it is, really the policy is being developed, because procedures are more for the board and how it's going to do its own business, but policies are something that the whole community really should be concerned with. Yeah.
Thank you. So that's another, so we could say, so this is actually, we're taking the VSBA's original thing, which said that the public comment period was for things not on the agenda. And we're flipping it and we're saying the public comment period is when you should talk about any topic, including discussion items. Because that's your opportunity. You don't get to discuss discussion items during the discussion items, but you do get to do it during the public comment. So the motion fails unless people want to move forward without this, but I think that's a very reasonable modification to clarify. Okay, so the motion fails. I would entertain a motion to adopt the policy as written.
revised policy was what-
Revised.
Yes. Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Let's get their hands up. All right, let's see. Nick, is there anybody with their hands up? No. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, okay, the motion passes. Great, thanks, everybody. Okay, so the next, item on our agenda is, well, okay, so I realized that during the announcements and the amendments to the agenda, I forgot to, amend the agenda to add, a superintendent report. And Joe has in the past advised me that in a situation like that, with a 2/3 vote of the board, we could amend the agenda and add something like a superintendent's report.
Mid-meeting,
Say again,
mid-meeting.
mid-meeting, yeah, that's what Joe has advised me. So, would board members be amenable to amending the agenda to include a superintendent's report?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, great. So I think maybe what we'll do next is do the superintendent report and then we'll proceed with superintendent vacancy after.
So, thank you again, and I just wanted to share a little bit about myself so that you all have a little information. I've been with the district for over 20 years. I've been in education for over 30 years. And I'm really excited to work with our district moving it forward and continuing the good work we're gonna do. So thanks for that opportunity. Wanted to share a little bit about what's going on in our schools right now, because there's a lot, even though, students are in our buildings, but not as they typically would be. So wanted to just give a huge shout out to our building and facilities teams that have been working around the clock. You may have recognized or seen, I think probably one of the most noticeable is the parking lots in all of our schools look amazing. But that's not the only thing that's going on. There's painting, there's, I don't want to give too much away because in some of the schools, you know, we're kind of excited to have students enter the building and see what it's gonna look like, when they come in, but the middle school has some significant changes going on. There's been work done at every single one of our buildings. And today, central office also had some work done. So big, huge shout out to our facilities and maintenance crews who are working around the clock. Wanted to also mention, if you haven't heard, we have disc golf now, behind the middle school. So, in partnership with the, South Burlington Rec Department and, some passionate disc golf parents of South Burlington School Districts, they got together and, we have a new golf disc area behind the middle school, so please check it out. And then I just wanted to mention, at our last meeting, I talked a lot about the great things that were happening with our students who are in ESY, Extended School Year Services, and our students who are at summer school. Wanted to mention that our middle and high school extended school year program culminated with a barbecue last week, where the kids were cooking up food and serving not only folks in central office, their family members, but also our South Burlington firefighters. So it was a really great opportunity. What I did was remiss in mentioning was that we also have Schools Out, which is a huge partnership with us. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Al Thompson and her crew of folks who are running a day camp for our K-8 kids, our K-3 kids, and trek camps for our 4th through 8th graders. Al and our team support our students to ensure that they have access to not only daycare that's fun, but camps that are engaging and are interest-based. So just a huge shout out to things that are happening here this summer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any board members have questions about the superintendent report?
Just the disc golf, so anybody can play whenever they want to.
How many?
I don't have all the details, but they did, there's some information I'd be happy to send. You know, and the South Burlington Rec Department has that on their website as well.
Okay, so we'll move to the next, the first discussion item, which is superintendent vacancy. And I have a few updates to share there. So first of all, we have, executed a contract with the Vermont School Board Association to do the interim superintendent search with support from our internal HR team. And the job will be posted by Monday, August 11th. So, that will be going out. And then the interim, according to our timeline, which I'll also share, should be selected by the last week of September. In accordance with our agreement with Kristen. We can also look at a community survey that we have ready to send out to collect community feedback about the interim. And then tonight, we do need to take motion to form a committee of people to be the screeners, be the screening committee to support the process. So before I share the timeline and look at the community survey, is there any board comment on stuff so far? Laura, be sure to speak up if. Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying
Yes.
question? You said that would be completed by the last week in September?
Yes, so I will share my screen. This is the superintendent search timeline. week of September 8th. We basically took the six weeks and we backed into a schedule, so we're gonna be holding ourselves to that.
Is their math wrong?
Yeah.
The last week of
Second
September.
week, second week.
It would be the second.
Second.
September.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify,
It's the new man.
I thought it might be awful. I just wanted to.
Thank you
double
for
check.
that clarification,
Yeah.
yes. So, there is a full timeline. I don't know if I wanna go through it line by line, but we're gonna create a web page off of the school board webpage that will hold documents like this. And as you can see, as things are completed, our VSBA consultant, Elaine Pinkney, will fill out, the status.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, we are currently here, board approvals. We need to determine the makeup of the screening committee. You know, accept this timeline, like we have to take formal action on that, but like we have to look at this and say it makes sense. And also review the stakeholder survey, which I can show in just a minute. So I'm just gonna leave this on my screen, and then in about a minute, I'm gonna page down and we'll look at the next page. I could say that.
I like this, and you said this is going to be made available on the website, so folks can get in and be able to see this. And I
Yeah,
would just say,
it'll be live, Jen, so that it will be, we'll update it as we go.
great,
And we did just receive the letter from the Secretary of Education today authorizing. All right, I'm gonna scroll down to this administrator input section.
Did you have thoughts about when you will be doing that with the administrators? I just being super mindful of that being crazy busy week.
My understanding is that Elaine has scheduled meetings with them over the next few days.
Has individually scheduled it with them?
Yes, my understanding is that she reached out.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing, but yeah, are you talking about the principals?
Oh, yes, good point. So. Maybe that is a little bit unclear. When I say administrator, what do you hear?
I'm thinking of our principals.
Okay, so yes, the principals, this administrator input is already initiated and scheduled.
you put in parentheses there, principals, so people know what you're talking about. School principals.
Hold down in here. The one thing that Elaine wanted me to make clear was that she thinks that the screening committee needs to meet in person and should meet for, let's say, 2 hours at a time, so that the team can gel and, so she wanted me to make that clear.
Will she also be reaching out to central office groups to get their input?
I imagine that she may have, when she says administrator, she may have, I don't know, I'm unclear about that. I imagine she should.
I think it would be important to reach out.
There's definitely central office, representation on the screening committee. But you would recommend, you want me to make sure that she does that?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, we will add that. So, central office input. Solve that.
And then it may have been up already, but I'm thinking about community members and how, is that the survey that you're talking about, that that's how you get input, or are there community members who state?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's a great segue to, let me pull that up next. So this is not, it's not listed here, so I'm just. So. Dan, Laura and I met with. The VSBA and Elaine to kick this process off a couple days ago. And something that we talked about recommending to the board tonight was that the composition of the screening committee be 3 board members, a principal nominated by the principals, a central office administrator nominated by the central office, the HR director, and then 1 teacher recommended by the Teachers Association and 1 support staff recommended by the Support Staff Association. And then sometimes, and certainly for the permanent search, we would have a community member on the screening committee. However, we felt that due to the short timeline, it would be better to have a community survey as a stand-in for having a community member on the search committee. So that's the recommendation of the board. The board could also say, no, we don't want that. We want a community member on the screening committee. So this is the, this is basically the motion that I'm gonna make a little bit later to establish a screening committee. And this would be the composition of it.
So when I think of that central office, I would want you all to be thinking about not just the education side, but also the facility side, and so I think that you may want.
To like differentiate that and actually have.
And possibly have to, I also, just strongly that we should have, community member on this. I know that the time is short, I think it's really important that we do.
We did discuss it, just. Because of we're down to 5 weeks. now.
Yeah,
Screening, and then selecting. Community member would take up. So we felt the survey was the best way. And then as Seamus said, I mean, we're absolutely gonna have community members on. The committee for long-term search.
sure.
Wonder what it would like to.
Oh, go ahead.
To try to get a community member on board, like what, is there any way we can expedite that process? Or, I don't have any experience with doing this myself, but maybe people who have.
Yeah.
And before, think of a way that we would be able to get a person on there. Quicker than typical.
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead, Laura, wanted to say,
Laura, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna, Dan said it well. I just wanted to reiterate that is the recommendation that we got because we are down now 5 weeks. And so that I do think the community survey is really good. I hope everybody fills it out. And that when we go to do the long-term search for the permanent, yes, we will be able to do a more thorough job of getting community members on. So this is more to expedite the process because we are feeling a sense of urgency here.
Laura, can I ask you a question? When you said that was the recommendation, was that from Elaine?
Yes, that was from Elaine, and that it's just in her experience when she's had to do these under a tight time frame like ours, that it's best to do the community survey, encourage everybody to do it, and then when we do the long term, we can there will be more time to, you know, to do that process correctly.
More thorough.
Could we go back to your suggestion? So one person from central office facilities, one person from central office, how would you characterize the other?
I think, you know, the position, interacts very, very frequently with the folks there. So whether it's facilities, maintenance, IT, and then the educational side, as the other side, that may be, you know, the business facilities, maintenance, business side, IT, that's all one section, and then there's the whole educational side, so.
Okay, so something like
Yeah.
this, one central office educational side, one central office facilities. Maintenance, and then would that be similar to this recommended by their coworkers?
I think if that's what you're doing across the board, then I think that probably makes sense.
I have a question, Seamus. For 3 board members, I mean, this composition of this committee is going to kick off before we even fill the board seat vacancies. So it'll be 3 or 2 board members.
Oh, that's a good clarification. So we went back to the Secretary of State materials on open meeting law, and we also asked our lawyers to review it, and quorum for the purposes of open meeting law does not change based on vacancies. So we are still at 3. We can still have 3 people.
Okay.
Because I was concerned, you said 3 of you met, I was like,
Yeah, yes, I had actually 2 conversations with Joe about it.
That's really
Yes.
good clarification.
yeah, thank you. And I'm wondering if like maybe one of the board members could be the lead of the survey results. Like I'd love if something on this composition, it said something like the results from the community survey or one of the board members.
Surrogate.
Yeah. Yeah, like a surrogate of the community survey. I just don't, you know, somehow I'd love to have it like listed under the composition that community input is part of the selection.
Well, I think that the way Elaine explained it to us, Emily, was, I hope I'm answering your question, because I am
Yeah.
having trouble hearing. So Seamus, Dan, and I, like all of you on the board, we were elected by the public. So, you know, we are the public, and we do care so much about this district, and that we are going to do our very best to represent the public. So we serve in as, what was the word, like, we serve as the public voice, and people should feel free to absolutely fill out that survey, send us emails. And again, this was, I mean, Elaine said this at least 3 times, because this is such a tight time frame, that it's that we act as the public voice. I don't know, did I explain that well?
Understood. No, you definitely did, and I appreciate Elaine's experience, and I agree. I just wanted it to be represented on the Chambers kind of helped me with what I was looking for there.
And also, Laura, I would say that we have not showed, like, me and you and Dan were who were available at the time to meet with Elaine. But I would say that, like, the question of which 3 board members is still something that we should decide tonight.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I don't
got it.
think-
No, got it. Well, yep. Precisely.
And also, we don't know who we should decide who the board members are, because we need to do that together. But like, we don't need to know who the principal's nominee is yet. That'll happen, you know, over the next week or so. Okay, so let me just switch over to the community survey.
Quick question,
Sure.
would there be any way that we can get a student on that committee?
Thank you.
So how you guys?
Are we, like, because we're technically not official board members, are we allowed
Great
to be
question.
there, so it's not a.
So it's not breaking over, it wouldn't break open meeting law, it wouldn't affect quorum. And also it brings up the point that this is not like a board committee, this is just a committee of
Yeah.
people. Charged with the authority to, as it said in that last document, nominate up to 3 people for consideration by the board. I think that 3 might be a little, anyway, okay, so now I'm gonna share this.
Just want to say that that's so important, thank you.
What is the response to that? Could we have a student representative be part of the composition?
We could
of that
absolutely decide
committee?
to, yeah,
So can we go back and edit that?
Yeah.
And add a student rep on it?
yeah, I will do that.
How will they be appointed?
Or selected.
I was gonna say, you know, because of time, it might be.
We should just choose right now.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay, so here is the form. I have filled it out just to try it out. It says, who are you? It says, what are attributes? Pick 3. Open-minded, motivational, active listener, flexible, visionary. And it should be noted that every time somebody takes this, the list is randomized, because otherwise it's kind of, so unifier, respectful, that's a different question from skills. Fiscal management, facility stewardship, strategic planning, organizational capacity, relationship building. I think one thing I'm noticing here is that we're asked, like, if I was answering this for a permanent, I would answer it differently from an interim, so we need to be super careful, we should
Put in
probably.
their new interim superintendent. And I have a question, when somebody has an opportunity, oh, okay, it says there, so if they want to add their own,
Yes.
and it's up to 3, they could continue to add like up to 3 options, it looks like, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
I wonder, because we have a principal here, and I don't wanna put her on the hot seat, but I have a question for Alyssa. In regards to, these surveys, and if there's some thoughts that you have. On how we're going to get the best input, and we also, I assume, are thinking about ensuring that these are different languages. So, those are just some of my thoughts, and, while we have Alyssa here, I just thought it might be great to see if she has any thoughts about how the surveys work best in her schools.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Melissa McDonald, principal at Lake Rockland Central School. I'm glad you invited me up because I really couldn't see that. Yeah, surveys, we are all sending out our school newsletters right now. We're getting ready for the opening to school. These can go in every single school's newsletter. Kristen is right, though, they need to be translated, the forms, so we can use talking points to send out a message to families saying there is a survey, to fill out, for the superintendent's search. But I don't know if they're gonna be able to open this particular link and then have this Google form translated for them. We do have people who can help others fill out the survey. When is the survey due?
It sounds like August 18th, might be a little short.
Yeah, that's a pretty quick turnaround. So I know for a fact, my newsletter is going out tomorrow. And so people will be reading it over the weekend. And they'll only have a week to fill it out. Most of the principals were at the Vermont Principals Association Leadership Academy this week, and they're just driving home tonight. And some of them will be coming home tomorrow, so I'm not sure when they're set to send out their newsletters. But I can reach out to them and say, can you please send out this communication?
And we could send a dedicated, like, we could send out a dedicated school message to all families. Even if we miss the opportunity on the newsletter, we still have a backup plan.
But I do think that's a tight turn to only have, it's like 10 days. Would we do that? I mean, if it's possible, if our screening committee meeting number 2 is happening on the 25th. I'm wondering if we could push it back to like the 24th or so, and that gives us a day to collect some of the information and integrate that. Perhaps. Yeah, it's a fast turn, but
24th is Sunday, to the 22nd, Friday.
I actually think people fill out surveys over the weekend.
on the weekends.
No, I'm saying
Yeah,
to whoever's going to crunch the data and get us the info, are they gonna be able to work on it? To get it to us, or is it just gonna be automatically crunched and forwarded to us?
So. Sorry, so we're talking about the 24th is a Sunday. And then we have supposedly a meeting sometime in the 25th. And so the question is, like, should we have it be due on the 25th and then assume that we're gonna meet on the 27th, giving 1 day for somebody to process the numbers? Is that sufficient? Or do you think that we need to make it due earlier?
Somebody can show me how to do it, I'm happy to punch them.
No, I think Elaine is gonna do that. That's my.
We need to ask her how much time she
Okay.
needs to put the data together.
I
to
think
get
for
to
the,
us.
sorry, for the most part, if it's a, like, it's like the box, unless people, like a lot of people are like putting in other, it should do it on its own, like a pie chart or something.
I would hope so.
Yeah, maybe you
It
could
does.
It will.
like limit or something. Just to make sure.
Moment, you are correct. That's exactly what it will do.
Well, yeah, it'll definitely create. Yeah, an Excel spreadsheet.
And I do think this is part of Elaine's, part of what she will do is she will take this and present it to us.
And I wonder if she can collect it along the way, so it's not like a whole dump on the 25th, you know, as people are filling it out. That
We ask you to do as soon as possible and
Yeah.
then send updates.
So to clarify, are we going to try to get a link to the survey in all the schools' newsletters?
I would think yes, but I think you need to have like a multi-pronged approach. I think it also needs to be available
Yeah.
on websites, and then there could be communication
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
folks and push it out on Instagram and all the social media platforms
Right.
as well.
And when you do the surveys multilingual, have you like in Chrome, you can like say, translate this page. Do you
I can.
expect, do you say that that's not sufficient and you have to have an explicitly translated version or?
I think that, sometimes people, still need assistance from a liaison to access a survey. And since we're not in session, the liaisons are not as readily available.
So is your
We
recommendation?
may be able to have in the newsletter, say if you need assistance accessing the survey or need, someone to go through the survey with you, then please reach out to the principal and we'll connect you with a liaison.
Right, and so we could actually put, since this is for more than just the school community. You know, we could have a, insert translation offer here, because this is gonna go out to everybody. And so they might just click into this and this might be the first thing, so like, yeah, we have to have some kind of a, something there, okay?
Yes. That same language of if you need assistance.
Right,
Yeah.
and so then maybe we could call upon one of the school liaisons, even for somebody who's outside of the school community. I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen a lot, but we would have that option.
Yeah, I think that would be a good option. Sometimes families just come to the school and ask the principal, can you help me with this? And we'll have people, and especially some people are taking little vacations before school starts, but especially if you extend the deadline beyond next Friday,
Okay,
we can help folks with that.
Maybe you can have a day that school board member be here and offer that time, if you need help with this. This is the window when someone will be at central office to be able to.
okay. Okay, so it seems like this, when we, Kristen, when you asked Lisa to come up, we had just been here looking at this question, which was, skills. Another question here is priorities. And Lisa, I think also like, if and if you have additions, sections you think we should be also asking about, it would be a good time, because we do want to get the survey out, as soon as possible.
May I add something as well, kind of backtracking? Preview to something me and Roman are gonna talk about next meeting during our announcements. We have an idea about social media output from us too. So that's students can be getting a lot more information, because I know they have the family newsletter you guys do, but oftentimes students don't look at that as often. So anyway, I think me and Momin could post this if, once we discuss this with you guys next meeting, with social media, so that students can respond as well. Just because even if we have one person on the committee, I think having all students be able to respond.
Can you sort of let who, like, under that for who you are, do we have student? Oh, yeah, okay, good.
And I need to check more than one.
Yes.
Thanks. Janice.
That same note, I was wondering, could we get, one of the school administrators to send it out to students in their email? Cause, if it's just going out to parents, students might not get passed along to that.
Do you think that students access their
Um,
email list? I mean, at least it's like.
Some do,
Yeah,
me and Ally, we've been trying to reach the students, we sent out a survey this morning and we had 27 responses.
Oh, great.
So there'll be something.
Mr. Burke can also post one of his famous little
Yeah.
Instagram messages.
Yeah.
People know.
Do you have a listserv of the students that you send messages to?
We can't personally send messages out, but like the principals have whole like class of 2026, 2027, and they can send like a class-wide email.
Great.
Then there's more questions, background experience. I happen to receive some feedback that they think that people should differentiate between a principal at a large school versus a small school.
How do you quantify that?
It's intentionally ambiguous, I guess. I mean, intentionally not totally, it could be 500 kids, it could be,
Unless you put a number.
Yeah,
put a number. What would you consider a large school?
that depends on the state.
Yeah.
Well, our middle school is the largest middle school in the state with more than 600 students. And so I would say 400 to 1,000 is a larger school. We have many schools in the state with 100, 100 or fewer, or maybe even up to 200 is equal to our smallest elementary school, so.
Do you agree 400?
Yeah, I agree, like minimum 400.
The largest school is probably 1,600.
So for Vermont, 400 is a large school.
400 or more.
400 or less.
And then what are the biggest challenges facing the district? What else do you want us to know? So it seems like what would block this being released tomorrow is this question of translation. Do you have a standard list of languages that you offer?
Isn't it on the website where there's a pull down? And was it like 6, 7, 8 different languages it automatically translates into?
We have that, we also, but there is more, and the amount of languages our children and students speak is, we have a phenomenal number of families that speak a myriad of different languages, so, I don't know, so you'll pick that up.
Yeah, I think this is a Google form, so Google Translate, if they're savvy enough to be able to use the translation feature.
Could we do something like, if we knew, let's say that there were 15 languages in the district, could we just have, if you, in Spanish, if you want help doing this in Spanish, please contact your school. If you want help doing this in Cambodian, please contact your school. If you want help in Russian, like we just put we just put 15 lines of text here, one in each language that says, talk to your school.
Kind of missing. And so I think that that's just something to be mindful of. I think maybe, like, you know, I think what, I don't wanna speak for you, Alyssa, but I think what you're recommending is that if we note that Google Translate, a lot of families are, a lot of school families, I guess, I shouldn't be speaking from community, but a lot of our school families now are aware of Google Translate. I can only speak for our school families.
Okay, so I guess the board is being asked to make a decision here. Should we put something in, like using the drop-down box on the website as a reference, just put one line for every one of those languages and say, if you want support in this language, otherwise use Google Translate? That would be an option.
Is there any way that we could like link a video with screen recording someone's screen going and like clicking Google Translate here and or like and showing the steps to do it? I'm not sure if that'd be, or like on the website maybe. Is
You
like-
can add a video.
Okay.
If you wanna make that video, I'll put it in.
Well, and then also say, you know, that's a great idea, and then also the backup of if you still, you know, if you need assistance,
Yeah.
we're here.
And do you wanna do that in all those languages that you said?
It's on the, school
So
website.
district website, so, okay. Insert
It automatically
instructions,
translates.
one
the
for
website.
language on SPSD.
I also wonder if Elaine's supporting this, if she, that this may be something you ask Elaine about. To see if she has.
She was the superintendent of a very big district.
Right.
Okay.
She might already know all the answers.
Right, you might be able to easily do this.
There's over 15 languages.
Yeah, so I mean, that won't take up too much space. People can just scroll past it if they don't recognize it.
And James, may I make another suggestion? Top, but I think it would be really helpful if you describe just briefly what interim superintendent means. So maybe for, you know, just short term for certain period of time, acting for so many months. Or for the year. Clarifies.
Yeah, and then maybe. If a board member,
There's 16 languages on the school district website that automatically translates the district website into that language.
okay, so I'll put those, and so if you guys have any suggestions about a better way of. Maybe just send it to me, a better way of explaining what the difference between interim and acting and permanent. is.
Do you need to explain the difference or just explain what interim is? I think it might be confusing if there's like.
I think you guys should just, somebody who's inspired to correct this, I think it's a very good point. And I think that, well, I'll just put in whatever somebody says.
I mean, you could do it that way and just put in parentheses Christian Romick, acting superintendent, medium term, and then put arrows, like this is what we are filling right now, this position.
I don't know,
Or
I
something.
feel like it's a lot of it.
Okay, keep it simple. Through September.
I do know that the community is not, I've talked to several people who I had to clarify what this process is, and I was so happy to, and I said, please tell everybody who else has questions about it and tell them to call me, because it's confusing. So I don't know, I guess then I think it would be easier if we just stick with this is what the interim is. If you start explaining all those different things, it could be confusing, but I think you're wrong.
Yeah, follow up and to tell me
Yeah.
if you have more thoughts on something. Okay, so I think, let's go back to the motion here. Let's add that we are having a student representative.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, so at this point, I think we should do the motion to see if I have any more notes on what. So I think we should do the motion. So I would entertain a motion to create an interim superintendent screening committee that is charged with working in collaboration with the consultant, Elaine Pinckney, the VSBA, and our HR team. Reviewing candidates, selecting candidates for interviews, determining finalists, and recommending finalists to the board for reposting the position. So I'll note that in that motion, I didn't say recommending 3 finalists or 5 finalists, it's left undefined how many finalists they've sent us. So, do I have a? Oh, you wanna make
I'll
a
make
motion?
that motion.
Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Does anybody want a limit or a goal, 3, 5, or just leave it undefined?
Well, I think just the recommendations, then we can go through and decide, or whoever's on the board, committee, or through, decide they don't have to talk to every. Through.
Okay, and Daisy, so we're deciding in the motion whether we should specify how many should be recommended to us. Do you think we should specifically charge the board and say you may only give us 3, or should we just say
I leave it undefined,
Okay.
because you don't even know your polls gonna look like. If you've got 22 people, you're not gonna. 20 people, if you won't have 80. Yeah, I would.
Okay.
May I make a request possibly? Is there any way we can have 2 student representatives? My thought around that is that it can be hard to bounce ideas back and forth over email. If you don't have someone that like you can easily talk to, like having 2 representatives on a school board, for example, like me and Roman can talk about things here because we don't see you guys outside of the setting. Is that a reasonable request?
So that, sorry, I blanked for a minute, so you're saying
You're
two
good.
people? Two students?
Yes,
Once 2 student
I
representatives.
think that would allow them to discuss.
You're talking about the actual committee.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, and I realize that probably the motion should cover the whole composition too. But I think that that's probably, so actually, let me restart, so the motion fails, sorry about that. So I would entertain a motion to create an interim superintendent screening committee charged with working in collaboration with the consultant Elaine Pinckney, the Vermont School Board Association, and our HR team to review candidates, select candidates for interviews, determine finalists, and recommend finalists to the board or repost the position, and whose composition would be 3 board members who are expected to represent views presented by the community survey, 1 principal as recommended by the principal team, 1 central office staffer from the educational side as recommended by coworkers, 1 central office staffer on the facilities maintenance business IT side as recommended by their coworkers, 1 teacher as recommended by the Teachers Association, 1 support staff as recommended by the Support Staff Association, 2 student representatives, and the HR director, and the superintendent, right? And the acting superintendent, that makes sense, yeah. So I think that that is a complete motion if somebody wants to.
Sure.
Yes,
I will move.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Elizabeth Fitzgerald, one, this was not warned for action, so I'm confused now when public participation is allowed, but my very brief comment is this individual who's put in this interim role is gonna be responsible for this year's budget development and communication to the community. So I would highly recommend including community representatives, because the screening committee you've identified is really exclusively of employees of the district and 2 students. And other than community surveys, which people will self-select in on a very limited time frame, there is no community representation. And I don't know, I had recommended before including the city manager in some capacity. So I would highly recommend that as well in some part of this process.
So I'd be happy to let the motion die and then add a few more people to this. like we could say city
And
manager, I assume.
And Seamus, when are we gonna choose like the 3 people on the board? Is that part of, or are we just doing
I
that?
think after we do this, after we charge the committee, we can say who's on it.
Okay, got it, got it.
Put city manager or assistant city manager.
Again, I do have to go back to what Elaine recommended, and that is, time is of the essence. We are gonna be having so many meetings. They're 2 hours. We need everybody in this committee to commit. And, I do want to defer to Elaine's expertise. We have hired her, and this was the list of people that she gave us. So I think if it gets too long, it's going to be an unwieldy committee. I think she said really no more than, I think it was about 7 people, because then because again, we are on a tight timeline, which is not our fault. It is what is, this is the situation we've been presented with. So anyway, that's my comment.
As a VSBA state, we're down to 5 weeks then. So now we're gonna have to come up with a process to screen community members. We simply don't have the time if we want to meet a 5-week deadline.
Yeah, and the committee, as we have it listed here, is just, according to Elaine, is too big.
So I wanted to clarify a couple points. So Kristen just mentioned to me, one thing that we could consider doing is waiting till next week to form this. And then the other point of clarification was that I did ask Joe if it was okay to make a motion like this, and he said it was. Even though this is not like taking action on a policy, and so he said it was okay to take action on something like that. So we're not taking action on this, we're just making a motion.
Then Seamus, what if, that's a great suggestion. What if we just chose the board members tonight, and then we move this to next week as Kristen suggested?
So, first of all, I don't have a open meeting law concern about making this motion, because Joe has given me specific advice that this would be acceptable. I think I'm concerned that Elaine is expecting us to give her a committee charge as soon as possible, and I'm concerned that if we leave it open until next week, then we can't, for example, take action to find this community member if we want to amend the motion to include that, and we can't ask Jesse to be on the committee and stuff like that. So I do have concerns about pushing out the decision on the composition itself. So I guess the current motion does not include the city manager or the assistant or the community member. And we're still in the discussion phase. So would anybody like to advocate for city manager, community member?
I'm gonna go back to what Elaine says, and again, we have hired her, and she is highly recommended from the Vermont School Board Association. And that, yeah, I'm not opposed to a community member. It's just that that's gonna take us into probably two more weeks before we do that. And so
You could just start randomly calling people off the ground list.
And just so you know, there are 2 attendees that have their hands raised.
Oh, great. Yes, let's listen.
I know, but we're in board discussion right now, and so I did take notes when Elaine was talking. She said a smaller group, people that could commit, and yeah. Okay.
So, I think that I want to allow people to make comments on this because of the ambiguity of the current guidelines for public comment that state that comments can be made during the discussion of an agenda item. And so I would say, let's listen to what, so would you, I can't see the list right now.
Kate Jarvis.
Yes, please go ahead. Would you recognize Kate Jarvis, please?
Hi there. Can you turn that down, Tim? I greatly appreciate this one, Tim. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak when I know you're in the middle of a bunch of things. I'm concerned about not having a community member, especially a parent or caregiver, be on the committee. I totally understand what Laura's saying about, you know, you want the committee to be sort of smaller and nimble and able to move ahead with the process. But I really feel like it could be a mistake not to have a community member, especially a parent or caregiver, because you might not be able to get a long-term superintendent. The interim might become a long-term superintendent. And I just feel like if you don't have parent or caregiver input from the get-go, that could be a problem. Thank you very much for your time.
Would you recognize Diane Bugby? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the ability to comment on this, and I totally respect Elaine and her experience in this process. I do have a concern about the expedited process and the return rate on a survey and getting it out to parents, caregivers, other community members at a time when you are going to be, if you haven't already started, building a budget for next year. And I just want to put that out there. It's almost like it would be, you would want both. And you would also want the survey for a long-term superintendent. And I don't know what people's capacity is to complete 2 surveys. So I just want to put that out there. I also would be happy to, I'm not a current caregiver or parent, but I have 3 adult children who went through the district. I've been on different interview committees for teachers and other roles within the district. I've been a board member for 4 years, and I'm pretty engaged in what's happening in the school district. So I'm happy to submit a resume if you end up considering that you would like to go the route of a community member. But, you know, and if it's not me, it should be someone, because you also need to engage with the community around the budget, and not including them in the role as important as a superintendent is concerning. Thank you.
The one thought that occurred to me while we were hearing comments is we might, if the idea is that board members represent views from the community, we could also get that kind of concentrated representation if we ask like city council members to be on the board or to be on the committee. So we could ask, you know, two city council members to join in. And then we wouldn't have to go out and pick a community member, because we could just go to that limited set of people and say, hey, would 2 of you be willing to join us on this?
And you know, one thing I will say is I think that, you know, recognizing the VSBA's position to keep this nimble, I think we also need to look back at some of the discontent we've had across the district with not doing a thorough superintendent search previously, and the concern from the community with that. And I think that it is important to ensure that we do have adequate engagement this time around. I would say, I mean, I think, you know, it's tough. We are under a very tight timeframe. But I think we need to be aware of that.
So you pick the dates of when folks need to be available. And you work around those dates. So if someone, for instance, Diane was able to, you know, she would be able to say, yes, I can do those dates. So if we work it around the time frame, that might be helpful, because, you know, that's gonna help get to the folks that are gonna be available.
But if we're doing what she's gonna submit a resume, but then if other people, then we're doing a search for a committee member.
I don't know that we need to, yeah,
But I mean, that would be the fair way to do it.
Sure, yeah.
So, for lack of a better way of putting it, say, let's offend everybody, but
Yeah.
because what we would actually be doing is we'd have to have a search for the community member for this committee. And that's gonna take up more time. So either, my opinion is we go with what the VSBA has said, the small committee, the board members represent the community. We had to or wanted to, we could include city manager assistants and say somebody from the city council to represent. But I'm not trying to exclude community members, but we don't have the time to
Procedural problem.
do a search
Right.
for a community member to sit on the committee.
Yeah.
Absolutely on for the
So
long term, but for the interim, we don't have that time.
why don't we try to convince 2 city council members to join us as another form of representation?
Well, once you put it, city council, city manager, assistant city manager, 2 members out of that group of. How many we have to?
Well, the reason that I'm saying 2 city council members, which I have no idea if they would actually agree to this, but is that they are elected representatives, and so you could argue that they represent both the caregiver parent community and also the non-school communities. And we would not have to do a search for them because there's only 6, or however many there are.
Right, but say 2 aren't available. That's what I'm saying, if you
Then we
made
go to
that,
1, but we can also, but we don't have to include them on the same line, because let's say the 2 are available. And then
Okay.
Jesse says, I would love to also do it, and then we say, okay, Jesse, join us.
Keep in mind too, that you've got board members who are also parents and caregivers of students that are in need right now. We're also elected officials that are representing the
Yeah,
public, right?
so I think
I
we,
hear what you're saying, Jen, because I agree, I felt that way too, I really want this to be a open, transparent, something that everyone can feel good about how the process has gone from the beginning. But then I also hear what you're saying, and if we were to just pick 2 random people, then there could be concern that why were those people chosen,
Right.
are they, somehow related to the, so then if you would know the fair way to do it is to collect people who are interested and go through it. It's tricky.
And I think that for right now, honestly, my gut feeling is with the clock ticking, we've got to make a decision and we got to move on. And I'm just saying that like as part of the discussion, I hear it, I get all of this feedback. But I think we've got to say this is an interim and that's where we're going to have that more engagement with this other.
Yeah, that's a very
get to the
That's
comment
my
you
take.
made just a couple of minutes ago.
Mhm.
What I heard was, what the community was upset with the last time was not the interim, but the fact that they
Interim.
where they
Yeah.
didn't do the long-term search, which was, I won't say promised. But that was, the community was led to believe there was gonna be a long-term search, and then that wasn't done. That's where the problem was, as I understood,
Okay.
and we're not going to do that. We're absolutely gonna do the long-term search.
so I would recommend, so I think I can actually make an motion to amend. I would like recommend, or I would entertain a motion to amend the current motion. That adds to the already described motion, city manager and 2 city council members, of course, if they're willing. To the list of people on this, to address questions about representation and also about efficiency. And then for the permanent, I think we would. Commit to having a community process to finding community members who can serve on the board, or serve on the.
There's already a system for that. I mean, I've gotten emails before about being on the, search for a principal and stuff like that. So we do have a way of doing that, but it will take, to do it in the fair way, will take a long process.
More time.
Yeah.
Google has their hands raised.
Could we recognize Fritz Burkhardt?
Hello, are you able to hear me at this point?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. I am very concerned about the exclusion of community members because I do think it is very important. Even if it takes a little bit longer, I think you need to be able to get community input. I'm also very concerned about including the city manager and 2 city council members. Specifically, there are times where the school district and the city are in competition for tax capacity of the residents. And I do not necessarily believe that the people who I am voting for for city councilor, even though I may want them running the city. I do not want them also running the school. And so I don't think it's appropriate to have cut out the two community members. And even from the room that you have, it sounds like you have some wonderful people who are interested in being involved. There are many people who call in. If you were to ask for resumes by your August 13th board meeting, and even start trying to make selections on that date, I imagine you would have people who would actually meet that date. So it wouldn't slow down your process, and you would be able to get the community input. I'm worried because it sounds from some of this discussion as if there are some people on the board who do not want community input. And that's not a situation that I think you want to be in going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Kate, I'm sorry, but I think I guess, did you comment on this particular round of discussion? Okay, so maybe if we have another round of motions, then I would allow you to talk then. So I have a comment about what we just heard. I would suggest that like we could add, first of all, I think that the concern about representation, I would be more concerned about selecting people who are not elected than people who are elected, because there's just,
Right.
these people have been on the ballot. But I think we could also say, community member, parent caregiver. And then we could say if, selectable by a date, August 18th. And then, non-school, and then we could do what Fred suggested and have a non-school. And then if we can't get them selected, then they won't sit.
How do we select them?
Yeah, and I think it's important to go back and to defer to the experts on this, and we've got to work through that. And I think, part of our decision right now is we need to make a decision, and we gotta move forward. Right? I'm waiting for Laura to weigh in.
She left.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking the issue of not having like community input, won't this group be acting based upon the community survey and the results from that?
Yes.
If everyone in this group is already saying our main focus is ensuring that we find a superintendent that follows these top 3 or whatever the service said, top 3 things that the community chose, then in theory, would it just all be like, won't there be community input either way?
Yes.
Like if
Yes.
we take a week to try and do a survey and the search for 2 community members, that would be hard, and there's no other way to really have a fair way of getting people in, our community members in.
Well, that's the whole purpose of doing the community survey.
That is,
Yeah.
yes, that's a good point. Although I do really respect the point that it will be easy to criticize this process.
Absolutely.
If we neglect to put, like, if we're already hearing the feedback that it sounds like we don't want to hear from the community, I just don't want to lose
No, I
those
get it.
famous political points
Yeah, I get it.
because we didn't, and so I think and you brought up a good point just now a moment of, well, how will we actually select this person? I think we could say that we will have interviews on the August 13th meeting for anybody who wants, we could take action on August 13th to select these people among those who have. So this is kind of a maximalist list.
Right. But I think we have to realize too, that we're not gonna make everybody happy. And that's just a fact. And we still have to make decisions, and we still have to move forward, and we still have to be cognizant of the fact that we have until the middle of September in order to fill this role, period.
That is an important
That is
clarification that our contract
critical.
is very
We
specific.
have to make the decision, and we have to make, and you're not always gonna make people happy. That's just the reality of it.
Right, but that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
I
I just
understand
think,
it. I
because of our
understand it.
history, I would say, I would rather focus on finding possibility of finding 2 community members than adding the city manager and city council members. I think I like the way you wrote it here. If we can find them by that time, I say we do like everything we can to try to get those community members on that board before we make a decision, or that committee before we make a decision. But I also will agree with Laura, we don't need this to be a very large.
So,
Right now,
yeah,
how many people?
you have a lot of stakeholder groups represented.
11, 12.
I mean, the
12 without the people in blue.
So I hear that people are not interested in inviting the city manager and the 2 city council members? Is that not something that people are interested in? I might suggest that just as they are people who know a lot about the city.
If, I'm just saying we have to call this list because it's so long. I think the community members outweigh the city manager in this particular.
Although they are not elected and they are not represented.
But I think that's sort of the point. Is that they represent a voice that maybe is not feeling heard right now.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we could potentially have all these, because some of these people are not gonna be available for the meeting. It's a question of quorum, you know?
If they're not gonna be available, what's?
Well, because maybe one meeting, somebody's available, the next meeting, somebody else is available, and so then you have an average of one person available.
They're not doing.
I would want whoever's doing this to be able to attend all of it, because I think that's really important. Everybody needs to hear accounting. I think that's important. I think it's important that we invite the city manager and the assistant. And again, if you're looking at your time frame and you're making the decisions based on your time frame, you're saying, these are the dates we're going to do this. So maybe Dan's not available that date, so he's not gonna first happening. And, you know, maybe Emily is available, so we're going to say, these are the dates, these are the times we're going to do it. We want all these people, we recognize that we're gonna do our best to ensure that we have all these people. And maybe not everybody can attend, and as far as figuring out, community, that's a trickier piece, I think, you know, having people come to a board meeting is hard for some people. Again, you're also working within a really tight time frame, so I'm not necessarily helping you so much on that piece of it. But I am suggesting that while this looks like a large amount of people, this is a large position and should be vested in it, and if we can get all these people at the table, then I think it's the right thing to do.
So, okay, so the motion that we are discussing goes all the way down to acting superintendent. And we could at this point make a sub motion to add any of those bullet points or not.
Yes.
So would anybody like to propose something that people could perhaps agree to?
Like I said, I'm not trying to exclude community members. I'm following the advice of the people that we hired to help us with this process. I absolutely want community members on the search for permanent superintendent, but we have 5 weeks now. And you're going to take time screening community members to be on the committee, and that's gonna take that time. That's my concern. My concern is that we don't have somebody selected because we are taking additional time to select people to sit on the committee, and we need the person. We need to make our choice by September 12th.
I mean, and let's just go down that road for a minute. If we say we're going to have community members, what does that look like? When are we soliciting their input right now? Is that properly warned? How is that information
That's my
communicated?
point.
I mean, now you're looking at, it's gonna be next week before it goes out. Or the week after that before it goes out. You see what I mean? And it's like, it just starts moving along, and I just feel like,
So you get 5 people who submit their. how many
And that's
we
again why I would,
Then we have to interview them.
that's why I would advocate for, and again, I have no idea if the city councilors would actually be interested, but they are pre-approved by the voters. They have been through, they have been balloted. You know, they have interests that are, their job is to represent people. And so I think that that's the, you know, between the 3 elected board members and 2 city council members, I think you could make an argument in the newspaper that we are representing the city. Now, I think from a superficial point of view, it might be even better in terms of feeling that people feeling that we're representing them if we had additional community members. But I agree that it puts a major sand in the cogs
Yeah.
to get things done.
in time.
And you're right, it's not the extra work that would be necessary to select the people, it's the time. It's the process.
But I don't
5
see
weeks.
anything wrong with leaving it on there as trying to do, I mean, it's stated on
But we
there.
have to define the process.
Could I ask if you're doing the interview on the 13th, right, it's our next board meeting? If you, is that what the idea was, right? had the interview, and then either after the interviews, go into like an executive session or something like that, deliberate on that, and then have an answer that day. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
feasible.
just like we do for the school board.
But the thing is, somebody's gonna complain that there wasn't proper notification. We're basically making the
I
notification.
think it's better that we try and have someone on that committee, even that's the best we can do at this point, in terms of just timeline.
So maybe what you do is you provide this information and she and Elaine can begin progressing this. And the committee may be expanded, the composition of that committee may be expanded.
I think
Next week,
ultimately
perhaps.
it may be difficult. I think Elaine would prefer attendance by everybody at all meetings, but that may be practically impossible. And so I think that we should just say, well, we're relaxing that a little bit. And you're gonna get 90% attendance, and then we just have a larger group. Okay, so for example, I would entertain a motion to add all 4 of these bullet points. Or we shouldn't say it like that, but to add the city manager, assistant city manager, 2 city council members if available, a community member from the parent caregiver community if selectable by August 18th, and a community member from the non-school community if selectable by August 18th. That'd be the maximum approach. Or you could.
My thought is, like Kristen said before, if you get people that aren't attending or can attend all the meetings, they're gonna make a decision without all the information. It's important for people, you're gonna commit to be there for every.
Well, but democracy functions on majorities, not necessarily a consensus. So I don't think I don't view it as like a big procedural problem if not everybody is there for every meeting. Like, we can function if we're missing a member. Maybe not if we're missing 2 members, certainly not when we only have 5, but we can probably operate with missing 1. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to add all 4. I would entertain a motion to add only the community members. I'd entertain a motion to do only the city manager and the 2 city council members, or we could just say, no more discussion, this is the final list. I don't think I can make a motion, so if I could make a motion, it would be for all 4 bullet points. With the understanding that we would not expect a meeting to include every single person every time.
Can we say all 4 with no further discussion at this time, so that we can move on?
You mean you wanna, I would entertain a motion to add the city manager or assistant city manager, 2 city council members, a community member from the parent caregiver, if selectable by August 18th, and a community member from the non-school community if selectable by August 18th. I would entertain a motion to that. To add that to the existing motion.
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion, sub-discussion?
The only thing that I would add to that is that this initial composition of the list be provided now. And then any subsequent members could be added at such time when
Right.
they're selected or whatever, right?
So-
So that we can start moving.
So the 4 highlighted. If possible.
Possible.
Well,
The
everybody
4
is
groups,
possible.
if possible.
I think everybody is if possible.
Well, I mean, we're gonna get 3 board members, we're gonna get 1 principal,
Right.
the central laws. Everybody that wasn't highlighted, we're gonna get.
Yes, agreeable.
Okay.
If selectable by August 18th.
Okay, so then we
Is that
should let,
August 18th okay, or would that be August 13th?
well, August 18th is when the first meeting would be.
Oh, okay.
And so like we could
Gotcha.
talk, decide.
That's fine.
So.
But
is
that
that-
only gives you 1 week, like to get everything out, get people aware
Interview
of this.
people and make.
Well, the interview has to be on the 13th, because we don't have another,
Yeah,
unless we
it
have
has to
another
be.
special meeting, which I don't think we wanna do. Let's recognize Bridget. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you for recognizing me. I appreciate it. By your logic, if you're looking for people who have been elected, who are actually representing people, there are 5 legislators from South Burlington and a senator, who have all been elected by folks. And 3 of those House members are also former school board members who have not been through a superintendent search, but who have been through many searches for administrators. So I'm confused why city council is the direction that you're going. And I would just sort of echo my husband's previous comments about the concern about the current city council has a great makeup and the current city manager is amazing, but it's a sort of dangerous precedent to set, I think, for having the city council be deeply involved in hiring folks within the school district. And that's all I'll say.
Your amendment there, Shane. That's
And-
important.
Would a senator represent only South Burlington though?
A senator, the current senator is also a parent in South Burlington. So he represents a broader space, but he was elected as South Burlington folks did vote for him. But he is also a parent of 1 alumna and 2 children currently in the school district.
And then the House members, would they be? How many House members are specific to South Burlington?
All 5 of them are specific to South Burlington. I am the odd one that has a tiny corner of Williston, but the majority of the folks that I represent are in South Burlington. So about 3/4 of my constituents are in South Burlington and 1/4 are in the southwest corner of Williston. But the other 4 school board members, including Brian and Martin, who were on the school board, represent only South Burlington. So we were all elected by South Burlingtonians.
We'll go back to that. If agreeable, there would have to be a selection process there as well. Like, how would they come forward?
Could be the same, recommended, they figure it out.
And they're not, you get 2 seats, 2 spots.
So that's interesting. Although, I don't know, these guys won't necessarily all agree with each other. So, so I think, are people concerned about this issue of city councilors should not be involved with deciding things for the school district? I personally am not concerned about that because I think that city councilors are representatives of the community. And this is not like this committee's scope is very small. It's only to recommend finalists. So I personally am okay with that. And again, it gets us the concentrated representation.
I mean, Christine said it seemed like a good idea, so I don't really know. I don't really have a good gauge about whether that would be a good idea or a bad idea, but I mean, I also know that Violet served on the committee to find a new police officer or chief, so we work together, and then, you're saying that would be a good idea.
I think I confirmed that was your advice, that you think city councilors are a good thing.
I think having that's part of Lansing.
Yeah, so, but that doesn't extend to city council necessarily. You're
Yeah,
making that
I'm
adjustment.
not.
Okay, thanks for
Yeah,
clarifying that.
absolutely.
There's, if people are worried about their elected officials at whatever level, it's not whether they're city council or their state rep or state senate. There's really not much difference.
So I think maybe what we're saying is that we will put out a request to the city councilors, the House members and the senators, and ask them if they are interested and kind of treat them in the same way as the community members. As a kind of a concentrated community member. Many people have one. So I think the current sub-motion is city manager, 2 city councilors, if agreeable, community member. So we've now changed that. So should we let that die and start new? Yes, it sounds like we should let that die. So this is what the current motion is for. It's everything selected on screen. So now the question is, do we want to add any of these or none of them?
I move that we add them all.
Do I have a second? Okay, so I'm gonna clarify the motion. So the sub motion is to amend the existing motion to add the city manager and the assistant city manager, if agreeable, 2 city councilors or house members or senators, if selectable by August 18th, a community member from the parent caregiver community, if selectable by August 18th, and a community member from the non-school community, if selectable by August 18th. So any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have Laura, so it would die.
I would die.
Did you vote yes? Or no? Let's do a roll call. All right, Jen,
You know, we-
Aye.
no pressure, no
17
rush.
People on this. Possible.
Aye,
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
and no rush, no pressure. Leave them along if you want to the side,
Why would it die if I said,
because there's only 3 of us.
and there's 5? And I think.
Four.
That's one. I,
All right, the motion passes. So, we now have a charged interim superintendent screening committee that includes stakeholders from a wide variety of, the community. Okay, so is there any more discussion on the superintendent vacancy? I actually do have something. So I am concerned that this survey does not collect any kind of demographics. And we might want to consider asking people to self-report age.
why?
Because I think that if we got a bunch of surveys back and we only had one person who was retired, then we would say that it was not representative enough and we'd have to go back and push harder. So all I'm proposing here is like a thing here that
There's
says
so much data that you could ask. You could ask for, race, you could ask, I mean, there's so many other things that you
Age,
could, I
sex,
think.
race, religion, I mean, what
the reason for
we're trying to
age,
do is gather input from the community members. Does it really matter what their age is?
I think it does, because if you only send this out, like, let's say that we forget to send this out to an effective channel to the retired community. And then we only get responses from the school community, and then we only discover that later that we only took input from. And age is like the best predictor of whether somebody is in the school community.
Then what are you gonna do? You're gonna send a survey out again?
Well, we'll just say, we did not get enough responses from people under the age of 25 and above the age of 65. And so we need to go on TV. I don't know.
Would we then disregard the past survey?
No, just keep it open.
Again,
It was a concern that I had with the budgeting survey. That's why I bring it up now, is that if we don't, in the budgeting survey, they didn't get demographics, and so it's unclear to me that the budgeting survey from Toussaint has is like convincingly
You
representative.
just wanna ask what their age?
Yeah.
And also leave an option for like, I'd rather not say.
then
I
what?
mean, the only concern that I have is that it derails us or the process,
It
because
derails
now we've got to
something.
circle back and get more information. And could that be delaying what we need to do?
But I think there's an 80% chance that the demographics are gonna come out just fine. And so in that case, it's fine.
Okay.
But in the 20% chance that we don't get anybody under the age of 25 in here, which I don't think is gonna happen. Like, and also that lets us have the legitimacy to say, the community survey had a wide representation.
I'm not concerned about the under 25. I'd be concerned more with the over 60, over 70.
Sure. So is it okay with everybody if I add an age survey to the question of this?
Why just age?
Because it's like.
And could that be perceived as a problem? Why you're only asking age?
Or do you have children in the district? I mean, I guess up above.
Yeah, you could just say
saying that.
community, so no connection to district. That might work.
That makes sense.
No, there's no connection to the district.
Children in schools.
No children in schools not employed by the district.
And you have to have it.
Then
Then you could be a.
student caregiver, and you might wanna. Yeah. Student caregiver slash, you know, just.
That would give me the information I needed. If we had a ton of people who checked community members, no children in schools not employed by the district, I'd be happy.
That actually gets it better.
Yes, you're right. It does get it better.
So we don't need the age thing.
I don't think we need the age thing. Great. Any other thoughts about superintendent vacancy? All right, next item on the agenda is school board vacancies. The only thing I think we need to say about this is that there is an application form on the school board website, and we encourage people to think of their friends and neighbors who might be good candidates for the school board and that they should apply. If not you, then who do you know?
Do you have any indication of who has applied so far, or where we stand with that?
So far, we've gotten 2 applications.
It's open for another week.
It's open
2
for
weeks.
11 days.
And these are positions that potentially they will be done, could be done in March, right? So people
Yes.
could so this might be the next way to get involved for a short time and see if it's something that you want to do. So I think that's just another good point. It's not a full term commitment, it's a commitment until March.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think I read in the other paper, there was a little blurb about it, and it wasn't quite clear in that blurb. When I read it, it made it seem like you had to do full terms of people who were replacing, so I just wanted to make sure it's really clear that it's just until March. And you can also, run
for
if you'd like
election.
to fill that seat permanently for the rest of the term. But I know we have an ad going in.
We do have an
Yeah.
ad going in, and we'll be sure,
Yeah.
I haven't finalized the ad yet, so we can be clear, with your point, to people that they are, it's a tryout period in some ways. Any other discussion on school board vacancies?
No.
And just to be clear, we're gonna be doing the interviews at the school board meeting on the 18th. The 20th, I'm sorry. Applications by the 18th, meeting on the 20th.
Yeah, so if you do apply, or if you know of somebody who should apply and you convince them, then we would be talking to them in open session on August 20th.
I'm sorry, I hate to circle back to this. When is this going to go out? This poll, this is gonna be finalized and distributed. You're gonna talk to Elaine tomorrow
Yes,
and insert that information, and then it's going to be going out soon thereafter.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
okay, we'll move on to discussion item C, policy 2.9 amendment, no discipline for contacting the board. This is the second reading. So I'm gonna pull that up. And I have on this screen 2 versions of it. First, the version that was discussed on July 7th, and then in response to feedback, a modified version, for discussion today. Now, this has not been seen by anybody on the board, and this has not been, and this was drafted by our lawyers. So this is my suggestion to our lawyer for open discussion now. And I want to address what it's for. So I'll give 2 examples. I think that it's important that staff members be able to give us feedback about our governance policy. With our current governance policy and its executive limitations, the superintendent, who is governed by the ends plus the executive limitations, would be perfectly within their rights to say, no, you as my subordinate may not address the board related to our governance policy. That would be completely allowed and legitimate. Another example is addressing the board about budgetary considerations, alternatives to proposals made by the superintendent. According to our current governance policy, ends plus executive limitations, the superintendent could tell any subordinate, do not tell the board your idea. And, so the new text is, attempting to be very pinpointed that we are looking for matters of general educational interest related to district policies and procedures, including possibly with respect to budgetary allocations. But then things that, so that would be my introduction to this policy amendment proposal. And I'll read it. So I move that the policy governance resolution adopted by this Board of School Directors be amended by adding subsection 10 to section 2.9, communication support to the board, to read as follows. Except with respect to complaints of protected characteristics discrimination against the superintendent and or complaints or grievances under the district's collective bargaining agreements or personnel policy manual, which shall be processed in accordance with those separately adopted district procedures. The superintendent shall not prevent or interfere with the right by any district employee to address the board orally or in writing with respect to any matter of general educational interest or as to district policies or procedures, including providing advice to the board with respect to budgetary allocations. However, the exercise of this right by an employee shall not create any form of immunity from disciplinary or corrective action in the event of bad conduct or poor performance. There shall be no retaliation against a district employee who has properly exercised this right.
I think that could be written a little bit more clear. I think that's a little tough to digest, honestly. Sounds like a lot of legalese. Like, in the end, what does it mean?
What do you think? How would you?
Well, I mean, I like that's part of the reason that I like the clarity of the language in version 1. So I guess the question is, how does version 2 differ from version 1?
So the difference is that version 1 might be read to imply that you can talk about whatever you want to the board and there will be no action can be taken against you for doing that.
Okay.
Which is wrong, because like, there's all sorts of things that you could tell somebody that are not
Right.
protected free speech.
Right.
So you had, the lawyer looked over,
He wrote it.
you wrote this.
And it was designed to fit within the existing policy governance because, policy governance has to be consistent across the entire set of policies. And so this is essentially designed to be a carve out that makes a specific executive limitation with respect to any matter of educational interest or as to district policies or procedures, including budgetary allocations. It's like a carve out that you cannot be told not to talk about that, which under our current policies, the superintendent is 100% allowed to do. They can say, you are my subordinate, you are not allowed to talk about this. And that's the matter that I think we're facing. And of course, a superintendent could come in, look at this and say, I'm not gonna work at a district that does this. I want total control over what my subordinates say. And then that superintendent would have a problem with this.
One thing is there's a period missing.
Yeah, after performance.
The second to last, I just can't stop looking at it. So thank you, Seamus. It is a lot of words.
Yeah.
But, to your point, Seamus, about wanting to make sure that we are open to being able to hear things, but also that the superintendent is maintaining the chain of command. The, the second to last line here feels like it's sort of trying to put into place that it's still, this is selective and this is, chain of command is still in place. So I could imagine that an incoming superintendent would appreciate the further clarification in this second, more jargony version. That's the thing that I heard.
Want to just go back to. I have some pretty significant concerns about this, and it's not because I don't think that folks should be able to come and talk. I think that we have a procedure already, we have a policy already. I am unclear on what the goal of this is, because I think it's already in place. And I think that what's going to come from this is, I think potentially might do more harm than good. I have questions about how it's going to be monitored. I have questions about when people come and say things. Is there an expectation that so I think one of the challenges we have is that when people want something done, there's a difference between being heard and between something being done. We may hear you and the answer may not still be the answer that you necessarily want. And so I'm concerned about the level of confusion that this is going to add. And what's our plan? How do we monitor it and where do we go with the information?
So I think there's two things, that, thank you for those comments. I think first, it does impose an additional burden on the board to follow our code of conduct, which specifies that we have to basically only pay attention to things that we should be paying attention to. So I agree that it does impose an additional burden, and that is only one of the concerns in that area that I agree exists. I would say that on the other hand, I have specific written knowledge of two cases where district employees with decades of experience were ordered by the superintendent to not bring up matters of general educational interest, district policies and procedures, and advice regarding budgetary allocations. And I want to say that when those employees were ordered to not speak to the board about those things, the superintendent was completely within her rights. And I do not judge that superintendent in any way negatively for having exercised those powers that the board had given her. What I'm doing with this is I'm saying, if you want to call this a gag order, I'll call it a gag order. I'm saying there is no, there's an executive limitation that there shall be no gag orders to subordinates regarding any matter of general educational interest, district policies or procedures, and advice to the board with respect to budgetary allocations. But that does return us to this first concern, which is that means that more people are going to talk, right? That more people are going to, in the middle of the budget process, there's going to be something that the superintendent believes is the right thing to do. And some subordinate who doesn't agree is going to say, well, I really think that we should have sold off the school buses, and the purpose of this is to improve the functioning of policy governance by allowing for that information flow. And if I didn't have specific cases that I know about where this was done, I guess I would feel it's less urgent.
And particularly because then not only was that information shared, but also the language in there that people could be subject to termination, period. Which was very concerning to see that.
Can I just for clarity, just because I think it's important as we have this conversation,
Yeah.
because it. Again, I think that goes back to. This is information that you've heard, but that wasn't investigated or wasn't, so it.
I have copies. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Okay.
that's how I know.
Okay. So, the back and forth.
I have that, you're right. The only evidence I have for this is direct emails from the superintendent.
Because I just think that, again, that it's much like the agenda that I wonder if we're creating more and making, I understand that the idea is that we want to ensure that folks have the opportunity to speak. Whether it's, we're discussing the agenda, which I'm not trying to do, or we're discussing, how folks can give information. I just, I think we have a procedure for that, and I think this is opening up significant issues that could come that those folks are, so your direct hires your superintendent, the superintendent needs to address the folks that are there. There's a procedure in place that affords that. It doesn't mean they can't speak. And I'm just, I'm concerned where this goes. In particular, when folks are gonna, I mean, and rightly so, they're going to advocate for their programs. When we're talking budget seasons, they're gonna advocate for the things that they want. And I get that, and then are we going to then set people up against each other? So, I came to the board meeting and I talked about my class. And so you all listened to it and said, you know what, I think we should put that back in, but somebody else didn't come back and advocate for their class. So is it any less or more important? I don't know. I think we have something in place and I think we're opening up.
Right, yeah, I think that another way to put this is that I think it would be surprising to the community if they knew that, the superintendent could order a subordinate not to speak on a particular subject and then take disciplinary action if the employee nevertheless spoke out about it. And of course, there is First Amendment protection for matters of public concern. So then, fit action could be taken against this employee, and then this employee could say, well, that was a wrongful termination because this was actually protected speech because it was a matter of public concern. But I think, again, it would be surprising to the community if they knew that, the people who've been at the district the longest, which I recognize that you're one of those people, could be ordered not to speak about something. And I think that if policy governance had shown to have been a flawless, perfect system, and that all information was properly and completely transmitted through that single point of contact with the superintendent, then I would say that this would be unnecessary. But I think that the material evidence, in my opinion, and of course, this is for the board's consideration, is that single point of contact was not sufficient for information flow.
So one of the things that I was put out there as a new acting superintendent, I don't have all the information. I don't have all the ways that I'd like to be able to support decision making, but I really like to look at this program. So I will just put that out there.
Yes.
That I would love an opportunity to research this further and to be able to provide you better feedback.
That'd be great. Thank you. Is there any other, board comment on this?
I mean, the only thing I would say is that if there is a way to tighten up that language and make it a little clearer,
Yeah.
that would probably be helpful as well.
Yeah, and we're not rushing on this, like,
No.
this is not warned for the 13th.
No. And I do appreciate what you said, Chris, because I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think that if we proceed with this, I do think that.
My other thought about this is that this is the kind of thing, if you're gonna modify policy governance, you should do it before somebody signs up. to operate under policy governance with us. So like ideally, this either is confirmed, approved, or rejected before the interim superintendent.
Right.
Or.
Right.
I don't wanna rush it.
I would encourage this work.
And we had a tight timeline, given time.
Great. Any other discussion on this? Okay. So the last, discussion item we have here is school board work assignments. And the purpose of putting this on the agenda is that, if there is content, if there are things that we want each other to do, we should talk about it in public. So does anybody have any stuff that they want to do or other people to do that we should talk about?
Well, I mean, I think it was removed from the agenda, I think for the 13th, but there were a number of items that we had discussed. I mean, we talked about Tracy. I think getting kind of a work plan for the board that we could have out there is really important. I think having, we've talked about, that's kind of overarching, but then there's also the scorecard that we had talked about where we're pulling together what I see that as being, is having monitoring reports, having that stuff visible and accessible on the website so people can see where that information is, because right now, that's not really out there. That's I think one of the big ticket items. You know, committees, particularly like public engagement committees and others that we could, you know,
Right.
perhaps craft.
Especially
but-
because now we have public forum.
yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of that falls under this overarching race, like if we can get that established and then you can put in there, okay, who's gonna be doing what? And who's on point for what, and who's responsible, accountable, consultant, informed on those different topics, I think really helpful. Just to see the big picture, to have some organization on what we're doing.
Okay, so I think maybe that is a good segue into, is there any? So we're allowed to do scheduling and agenda planning, you know, outside of public meetings, so we don't technically have to do it right now, but, is there anything that? So I guess I'm interpreting school board work assignments as also allowing us to do a little bit of scheduling. Is there anything that is missing from, or that you want added to the August 20th board meeting? Is there anything that you definitely want to cover? Like, for example, we have received community feedback that they would like to see, all of the monitoring reports in a single grid on our website. So like, we could say for the August 20th meeting, discussion item on the scorecard.
August 20th or August 13th?
13th is fall.
Okay, good. Yeah, I would say
Any-
August 20th.
So is there anything other, any other I know one thing, Dan, you're interested in. Is the contracts.
Right, yeah, we need to get all the contracts.
Yeah.
On the
So-
website.
So maybe like a discussion item on things that should be added to the website, like scorecard, like.
And that's where I think that RACI is kind of like, I look at that as being a map of what we need to do, and that would be one of the things. If you looked at, I think one of the things that I had sent to you regarding what would be built out on that, it's. You know, information, post, you know, negotiation updates, there would be website updates, which could include contracts. There's the formation of different committees, if you're doing public engagement, student representative committees, like all of these things, it's just the work plan and like put everything out there. So that we have strategy for what we're working towards. One of them is a strategic improvement plan. I know Burlington has one. Ours was updated in 2007. So that's like,
You just, it's probably not normally your domain, you know what the Burlington. Improvement plan is, it would be nice, would you look into that and see what that entails?
they have a scorecard too. So that's one of the other things.
And if you have any suggestions for more information that we can provide people.
I mean, I just think it would help to have, like, this is what the boards were really working on, instead of like, okay, there's these monitoring reports, but these are some of the other things that we're doing.
Right, and we would have to make it compatible with. you know, open meeting law,
Yes.
like, you know, there would have to be a clear, you know, this thing that is supposedly being worked on, here's the meeting where it's warned for,
Right.
and all that stuff, so, okay, so. My takeaway from this is that on the August 20th meeting. If we have time, we could have a discussion of adding some content to the website, such as a policy monitoring scorecard. Such as,
School board, school code.
school board scorecard, yeah, and, like, potentially contracts.
Teachers and support staff contracts,
Yeah.
and the administrators.
Yeah, but it would be good to get historical ones. Yeah, something like that. All right, any other thoughts about work that we should be doing?
Well, you mentioned it earlier, we're going to select board members for the committee.
Yes. That is an interesting point.
And or.
I guess maybe we don't have to until next week.
Yeah, you don't have to until next week, but we're here. And why not? Discuss it. And how you guys can, are they going to be the student?
There's only two of you.
Or are we gonna have a process for that?
So I just wanna know, we are moved off that agenda item. That's
Yeah.
the only issue.
Well, it's a work assignment, so just.
The problem with these auditory. Or hoopery.
I think it's kind of important to get those dates figured out. And then, so for anyone who is gonna be on that committee, I know we're off the agenda, I'm just saying, before we choose anyone, I think maybe, like, as Kristen had suggested, getting those dates lined up.
So we need to
that-
send out a doodle,
Yeah. I want,
like a scheduling, like, that says like, are you available?
Can you just do it? We just pick the date.
That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
You just pick the dates and you
Yeah.
say, these are the dates.
I see
and
what
you
you're saying.
Yeah.
see
Because if you're gonna be sending them
So
to
then
at least
I-
12 people.
Ally Moment can be
Can
like,
roll
oh,
over.
that's my birthday, I'm not gonna do it,
So how about we ask Elaine to pick
Yes,
those dates?
yeah. Have
Okay.
Elaine give us the. And that way, we can help, we can figure out the other people too that.
Okay.
I'll stop talking about that now.
All right, so, Aug 20, we're gonna do. Additions to website, and then on. And we also need to ask Elaine to schedule meetings so that we can ask people. Who want to be on the agenda. Whether they want to, whether they can meet those committee.
You said agenda, but
So that we can ask people who want to be on the screening committee. If they want to.
if they're available.
They're available, okay. All right, any other thoughts on school board work assignments?
Hey, James, can you send me the poll so I can make the video? Send it to you, Mark.
You're okay with Shannon's volunteering you to do that? You're probably the most adept at doing something like that of anybody on this.
Don't assume Dan's an old man that, all right, well, then we'll move on. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.